As the Wall Street Journal alluded to, you know what you could have done to alleviate this? Since you want to take the Trump administration to court and say that he had no business federalizing the National Guard, you could have caught the National Guard. You could have made sure that law enforcement throughout the city of Los Angeles had a very strong, vibrant, conspicuous.
After Stephen A. Smith painted California as if it were a live crime scene, the spotlight immediately shifted to Gavin Newsom, the man many see as the prime suspect. Normally Stephen A. saves his fire-breathing rants for LeBron James or NBA controversies, but this time, he aimed his flamethrower at politics. With hair gel hypocrisy and swagger on the chopping block, the question writes itself. Why would the king of sports talk unload on a governor? What triggered such a public roasting? Sit back, this isn't just politics. This is entertainment, with Stephen A. holding the MIC.
Him calling in, meaning Trump calling in the National Guards and the Marines. You could have done that, but you didn't. And because you didn't, you gave him the opening to do it. Because it makes you look like you're weak on crime. You're weak on lawlessness. You're weak on borders. All the things that got him elected.
If you enjoy this kind of breakdown, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It helps more than you think. But let's get to the fireworks. The rant began as a simmer, that signature Stephen A. tension where you know something big is about to explode. Except this time it wasn't aimed at referees or Kyrie Irving's moods. No, the target was the slick-haired governor himself, Gavin Newsom. And if California was already smoldering under criticism, Stephen A. just poured jet fuel across the entire state.
Personal belief is that the political career of Gavin Newsom is in peril, if not flat out over. His presidential aspirations have been eviscerated. There is no way he overcomes this. No way. And in regards to Karen Bass, to say nothing, you can come and speak out, but that video will live in infamy.
How did the governor of California end up in the same kind of verbal crossfire usually reserved for NBA soap operas? Simple. Newsom spoke as if California were still a land of endless opportunity, while reality showed people fleeing in record numbers. To Stephen A., this wasn't optimism, it was delusion. It was the Titanic all over again, and Newsom was the iceberg dressed in an Armani suit.
You playing right into the hands of Donald Trump. Because I got news for you. On this particular issue, as it involves migrants, immigrants, those who are undocumented, dare we say illegal, in the United States of America, he's winning on this issue. There's a reason he won a popular vote. There's a reason he won the Electoral College vote. There's a reason he won every swing state. There are people within the United States of America that want our immigration crisis addressed and what the situation was.
Then came the epiphany. Stephen A. compared Newsom's polished speeches to a Disney promo tour. Except in his eyes, California wasn't a magical kingdom, it was a haunted mansion. High taxes, crumbling infrastructure, homelessness in plain sight, and a stench rising off the sidewalks like a warning sign. Stephen A. wasn't impressed by the show. He saw the facade for what it really was. Shiny paint covering deep cracks.
Flying all the way from Ghana, about a 15-hour flight to Los Angeles, and you're telling me you couldn't answer a reporter's question? No comment, we'll talk later, or let me huddle with my staff and we'll get back to you. You couldn't even think to say that? Nobody on your staff prepared you for what has been transpiring in California? Nobody gave you a warning, a heads up? You didn't have it?
And then came the knockout blows. Newsom calls California a freedom state. But what kind of freedom is it when toothpaste is locked behind glass? When a Walgreens looks like a Cold War bunker? Freedom to spend $8 on gas while stuck 2 hours in traffic to a job that may not even exist tomorrow? This was Stephen A. in volcanic mode, his words rolling like thunder. He dragged out the infamous French Laundry scandal, painting Newsom as a modern Caesar dining in luxury while ordinary families were locked down and struggling. The hypocrisy wasn't just political, it was personal.
You know why you didn't take Donald Trump up on that offer or Gavin Newsom up on his offer and arrest the governor of California at that particular moment in time? Is that just, I mean, normally when we've seen you, you said you wouldn't hesitate to arrest an elected official. He was daring you to do it. How come that didn't happen?
Well, first of all, I'm not a prosecutor. That's up to the Department of Justice, that they need to open a criminal case and prosecute. But that was really taken out of context because I did an interview.
That's when Stephen A. gave it a name, the California double standard. Slick speeches on national TV, but back home, CVS stores raided, shampoo stolen, streets unsafe, and homelessness exploding to nearly a third of the nation's total. Californians weren't leaving for cowboy boots and barbecue in Texas, they were fleeing rolling blackouts, suffocating rents, and crumbling trust. Stephen A. peeled away the PR gloss, exposing Newsom as more obsessed with dunking on red states than fixing his own backyard.
Gavin Newsom. I think the brother looks the part. He looks presidential in them damn blue suits, no doubt about it. He's sharp as a tack. He's smart as hell. But on far too many occasions, when he was spewing out facts, it was rife with emotion. Instead of addressing the facts that the right was throwing in his direction to debunk anything that he had to say. But we forgot to mention that to Bill Maher on Real Time. This is the kind of problem.
To Stephen A., it was all too clear. A man chasing national fame while his state burned literally and figuratively. Fires, fentanyl businesses, shuttered families trapped in spirals of crime and chaos. Instead of solutions, Newsom traded barbs with Ron DeSantis on Fox News. Instead of leadership, Californians got photo ops. Stephen A. demanded accountability not out of partisanship but out of frustration. Because for ordinary people, the theater wasn't entertainment, it was daily survival.
About the right, when you talked about conservatives, when you talked about conservative folks out there and what their principles were and how they may not have been for transgender athletes competing in sports, how they may not have been for, for open borders, how they may not have been for sanctuary cities. Didn't you question their humanity in a roundabout way at the very least? Weren't you one of the voice boxes out there saying that stuff? Now, I like Gavin.
With trademark volume, Stephen A. mocked the contradictions that define California under Newsom. Sky-high taxes but potholes everywhere. Tent cities in the shadow of million-dollar condos. A climate agenda with an unstable power grid. Plastic straws banned but free needles distributed. Equality preached from podiums but the middle class fleeing in U-Hauls. For a man once hailed as the Democratic Party's future, Newsom looked like a salesman caught overselling a broken product.
Would definitely be big time when it comes to addressing crime in the streets.
Okay, good.
The subway system in New York City, you're damn right I got a problem with that. Something needs to be. I'm a native of New York City.
Yeah.
I took the F and the E train all the time. I wouldn't want my family traveling on the subway right now.
Same with me, not
what
anymore.
I'm saying.
Do you take the subway anymore? I feel like you don't.
Well, I don't.
You don't.
I don't. But that's only because when you get popular and stuff like that, you try to avoid crowds.
You're too popular to take the subway.
I was in L.A. The homelessness that exists there, I got an issue with that. Certainly, when you look at Gavin Newsom and some of the policies that he's put forth, you're talking about a lot of different things that need to.
And what about the schools? California bleeds money in taxes, yet classrooms still argue whether kids should master math or just vibe to graduation. Stephen A. compared it to paying for a courtside NBA ticket only to find out you're watching a JV squad with no coach and no basketball. This wasn't just political comedy, it was real life. Families watching businesses collapse. Communities watching safety vanish. Citizens watching a wealthy state crumble into chaos. And through it all, Stephen A. became the voice of every frustrated taxpayer calling BS when few others would.
Some in tears. I retweeted it, so if you have it, great. It's easier. There
Did
you
he
go.
actually cry, Pat?
Oh, you should see this here. If this is the clip with Anderson Cooper, Rob.
Yep.
Okay, go ahead and play this clip.
I hate to even ask this question, but the president-elect chose to attack you, blame you for this.
One can't even respond to it. I mean, people are literally fleeing. People have lost their lives.
Why, though?
Kids lost their schools. Families completely torn asunder. Churches burned down. This guy wanted to politicize it. I have a lot of thoughts, and I know what I want to say. I won't. I stood next to a president of the United States of America today, and I was proud to be with Joe Biden.
The beauty of it. Stephen A. didn't need policy credentials. He didn't bring charts consultants or campaign slogans. He just looked around, saw the hypocrisy, and said it out loud. Loud enough to echo far beyond sports talk. Once Stephen A. has you in his sights, you don't leave untouched. You leave burned, rebranded, turned from future candidate into punchline. And in that moment, he wasn't a sports analyst, he was a megaphone for millions.
Besides the party, and implored fellow Democrats to take accountability for their losses and called the party's current brand, quote, toxic, end quote. Newsom appeared on Real Time with Bill Maher and said the following, quote, Democrats, we tend to be a little more judgmental than we should be. We need to own our mistakes. We need to own what's wrong with our party. Part of the problem with the Democratic brand is that we talk down to people. We talk past people, end quote. Newsom recently launched a new podcast called, quote, This is Gavin.
His shout carried weight because behind the spectacle was truth. Memes flew, hair gel versus hairline trended across social media, but under the laughter was fatigue. People sick of empty promises, skyrocketing costs, and feeling like pawns in someone else's game. Stephen A. tapped into that cultural frustration. It wasn't just noise, it was a mirror held up to power, and the reflection wasn't pretty.
We don't know what to say anymore about these elected officials in California.
In California, you pay a lot of taxes.
Hell yes. And by the way, they're the ones that put Gavin Newsom and people like Karen Bass in office. So now you realize you have Democrats who helped put them in office, clamoring for Donald Trump to be back in office.
And then came the final dagger. At least when Stephen A. yells, it's entertaining. Newsom's grand declarations usually end with a press release no one reads. Game, set, match. Somehow a sports commentator recently cut loose by ESPN made more sense than the governor of California. With no focus groups, no handlers, just pure fire, Stephen A. turned Newsom's polished PR into a late-night roast.
Hosted conservative guests like Charlie Kirk and the aforementioned Steve Bannon. Newsom also found common ground with the right on the issue of transgender athletes competing in women's sports. He called these athletes' participation, quote, deeply unfair, end quote. Bravo. Bravo. I mean, bravo. I'm so very touched, Gavin Newsom, governor of California, that you would say that. Why didn't you add that you were the one doing it? Because that's exactly what the hell you...
Because while Gavin Newsom polishes his image, rehearses debate zingers, and poses for national headlines, California keeps breaking down. Power outages, broken promises. And thanks to Stephen A. Smith, that reality got amplified louder than ever. So the next time Newsom steps on a national stage with his perfect smile and carefully rehearsed lines, remember, the roast already happened. The meal is served. And Stephen A. made sure the world took a bite.